This is Python's Paradise. This is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena, straight out of Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, with a Toronto background behind me, of course, because I have not quite made that move to Toronto. Trying, I'm hoping, hasn't yet happened, but you know what? I'm still doing the show. Python's Paradise is still a go, and I am still surviving, still living here. And here we are on August the 24th, 2023. And folks, I would have been 4 years old when Rocky hit theaters in 1976, although that was the year my younger brother Andrew was born. And I've seen a few of the Rocky films in the theater. I've seen the original one, not in 1976, but I have seen it on re-release. And of course, Rocky Balboa I've seen, which was terrific. And I've seen, of course, the first two Creed movies, which were nice spin-offs. But we're going back to that first film with some of the sequels in mind as well. We're going to take a look at we're chat with today the owner of the pet store that Miss Talia Share worked at, because I have a kitty here, of course, so I'm a pet owner as well. Folks, I give you the awesome Jane Marla Robbins. How do you do, Jane?
I'm excited to be talking with you today. It's awesome. All those animals, hyena and python. I'm
Hmm.
all into getting into our joyful animal, playful selves. That's how I'm feeling today. I'm not sure
Yeah.
but I'm think about it. Hyena, you laugh like a hyena. So that's pretty joyful if you can be laughing that long. I,
Well,
I
I
yeah,
I
no more.
find that I find the snake and the hyena are two of the most misunderstood animals on the planet because they do a lot of good for the environment, but a lot of people have phobias of them. But me personally, I own a cat. That's why I own for a pet, and he's over there being lazy as usual. He doesn't do a whole lot to help me with the rent.
Rude. Well, I must say, my dog doesn't help with the rent, but he helps on so many other levels. He
Hmm.
keeps me happy. He keeps me laughing.
Hmm.
He's good company. He's a good nurse when needed. He's a good walking companion when needed. He's a
Well,
good.
mine is all those things except walking companion. Mine will move whenever I shake the treat bag. He's just over there sitting on the bed right now. He gets over here close, I'll hold him up. But yeah. But Jane, it's so nice to have you on here today, and it's amazing, Rocky is still going strong all these years later. What do you think about that?
I think finally Sylvester Stallone put into this movie a message we all need to understand, which is, well, not only that it's the journey that counts, but also it's not about winning, it's going the distance. Or another way of saying that is what does it mean to be your best self? That you try as hard as you can do. And if you do that, you go the distance because that's the distance we have to go. And I think people need
Absolutely.
to feel encouraged. It's not about winning a prize, it's about doing your best. One of my favorite, okay, here's the story. When we get to heaven, if there is one, but this is a metaphor anyway,
I
whoever's,
believe in heaven.
well, there you go. Whoever's at the gate is not going to say to me, why weren't you more like Mother Teresa? He or she is going to say, why weren't you more like Jane Marla Robbins?
Hmm.
And that's what I think the movie also speaks of, because Rocky really is himself. He pushes himself so that he can go as far as he can go, and it's pretty impressive. And it's this, what's so interesting, it's the same with Stallone. Who knew?
Hmm.
We didn't, nobody knew. It was a tiny little independent film when we shot it in 75. And he's done that too. Surprised me because he directed a film after Rocky won. I
Hmm.
thought it was one of the most brilliant, beautiful films I'd ever seen, but it didn't get an Academy Award. And Sly Sylvester, whatever you want to call him, had to become who he became. He needed to do these action heroes, whatever it was or is in his psyche that needs to be superhuman. Of course, I believe we're all superhuman. So I didn't need to write that movie, but my 7 plays and 5 books basically have the same idea.
Well, I was actually really sad when Stallone was up for Best Supporting Actor, I think, for Rocky Balboa, and he didn't get it. He won all the other awards and he didn't get that. And I was like, because I know he's been up for a record amount of Razzies, for various action roles and over the top action roles. But Rocky is like, man, he really, really gave it, and it's like, and I see a lot of that too in First Blood. I'm not a big fan of the Rambo sequels, but that first movie, hands down, was terrific, and I love it when Stallone really reaches for it. And there are moments like Rocky, for example, like even the first Rocky, as a good example where he reaches for it. And sometimes I don't think the Academy is ready to acknowledge that. They just pigeonhole some of these people in certain places, like Eddie Murphy being nominated for Dreamgirls and he didn't get it. And it's like, it's almost like they're being held back and not being taken seriously enough to actually win the award. Do you see any truth in that?
Prizes are so whimsical and at the whim of who knows what. Why suddenly people go behind one actor? Is it for something they did 30 years ago? I mean, that often happens. It's like, oh, gee, this guy hasn't been given an award. We love him. It's about time. I don't think there's a lot of rhyme or reason to how they're given. Really, I don't. I mean, the fact that at the penultimate Academy Awards, or was it 3 years ago, they announced the wrong film that got the Academy Award. And this is the point. It doesn't matter. Nobody cares. They're all good. They're all huge. I mean, the truth is Rocky was the first biggish movie. I had done a small movie in New York before I did Rocky. But okay, so what am I saying? I was going to say 3 things and I got so excited about talking here. I think I was also going to talk about the director, John Avildsen, who did Rocky 1. And really, without John, I don't think we would have had an Academy Award. The script was good. Stallone's performance was good. But John really was a kind of genius. And I watched him develop camera techniques that had never been used before. I couldn't believe it. He was running up those stairs with a camera, practically of his own design. I think Stallone learned a lot from him. I'm not saying Stallone didn't know what he wanted, but I also give John credit for knowing how to work with him.
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
of course, I mean, Stallone had to have been a huge ego, but John had all of the prizes, had done all the films, and Stallone was lucky to get him. It is true that in that scene of mine in Rocky 1, which I love, well, I mean, now it's a classic. I still get letters from people, but I had been told by John, Jane, you have to make the pet shop owner mean so that we have compassion and sympathy for Adrian, right? And the truth is, it's enough that I sent her down to clean out the cat cages. But hey, give me a direction. I mean, short of putting cigarettes out in the fish tanks, the cameras are rolling. I do mean. And Stallone stops it immediately. Python, that man too. He said, and yo, John. So John went over to here and John comes back. Now, mind you, it's a small movie. I know the cameras are ready to shoot and everything is costing everybody a lot of money. And John says, not so mean, Jane. What? I mean, I'd had probably 2 acting coaches making sure it was really mean. But Stallone knew. if anyone cares about acting techniques, I had like a second to totally redesign my body, focus my voice, my intentions, and my character. I saw some bird seed in the pet shop shelf and I just put it in my hair. And there you see me shaking my head for no good apparent reason. And a whole new character was born. But that was because the three of us collaborated. The set was a joy to work on. John had that gift. And frankly, when Stallone, because in Rocky 2, it was Stallone who directed. Still, there was a sense of respect, and that man always knew what he was doing. Very impressive. And so did John. So did John.
I interviewed Whitney Rideback, who was featured in a cameo in Rocky 2. It's been a while, but I think he was the guy that was directing a commercial or something in that film. So, but it's been a while since I've talked to Whitney, but he was in that. But I was going to say, how many pets did you sell to Talia Shire?
She was my assistant. Remember, she worked for me.
Yeah, but you could still sell her pets.
That is possible. Instead, we became good friends. She's a remarkable woman. She was in all those Godfather movies.
Yep.
A couple of course, as I'm sure you know, is her brother.
Mm-hmm.
And I find the Godfather films brilliant. I find she's brilliant in it. She's a special kind of genius too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, Rocky was it was one of those movies that had a message that everybody needed to hear. It's one of those ones that really makes people want to go out and really improve on their own self, not just their lifestyle, but their own self, and you had a great cast in it. Carl Weathers, of course, as Apollo Creed was terrific in it, and of course, you get to be in some of the sequels. Now, talk about working with Stallone, not just as an actor, but as a director for Rocky 2.
The man knows what he wants,
Mhm.
which is an amazing quality that I don't always have because my mother taught me not to trust my intuition, but to think about it, really. No, don't make a decision right away. Sylvester always knows, and he's always right. He has a sense of rhythm. He has a sense of what's appropriate. He's an amazing man.
Absolutely. And if I remember correctly, were you in Rocky 5 as well? Yes, you are.
I was.
I
And that
haven't
was
seen Rocky 5. That's why I'm looking at your credits here. But yeah, Rocky 5, yes.
John Avildsen again. He directed Rocky 5, not Stallone.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't seen Rocky 5. I seen right up to Rocky 5 actually, and I've seen Balboa, and I've seen the Creed movies, which I thought was an interesting spin-off, but I never did see Rocky 5. I don't know why, I just never did.
Well, you've seen 4. That could be enough.
Why, you weren't a fan of Rocky 5?
The truth is, you know how long ago that is? What did we shoot?
Yeah.
40 years ago. Since then, my God, since then, did you say you were from Toronto or you wanted to go to Toronto? I missed
Oh,
that.
I want to live in Toronto. I'm going to do a convention there this fall with a Canadian actress I sister at the uh the horror film conventions there.
Wow.
So yeah, that got me the convention bug. I live in New Brunswick, and I've lived here my whole life. So I never started traveling until 2017 when I got invited to that con. So it was my first time in an airplane, first time a lot of things, and it was amazing. But
It's just, I worked with a conductor in Toronto when I was an active actress where I did absolutely everything. He was a conductor of the Hamilton Philharmonic, and we did every piece of orchestral music he could find with
mm-hmm.
me speaking the words, everything from Peter and the Wolf to a lot of stuff. That was really fun. So I got to know Canada a little bit. and his family did concerts in Toronto, the brother a cellist, the father a conductor and a composer. So I'm a big fan of you guys. That's all I can say about Canada.
Oh, I appreciate that. You had mentioned you did one film before, Rocky, and I'm noticing The Werewolf in Washington. I have not seen this. I never even heard of this.
Actually, I did two, and the other one is in the Museum of Modern Art, and it was directed by Milton Moses Ginsburg, and it was called Coming Apart. And
Okay.
I was the wife of Rip Torn, one of my favorite actors.
Oh, there
And
you go.
we didn't know it was going to be a classic. I mean, the Museum of Modern Art only puts classics in there. And it was a very simple one camera held film. The idea was a shrink put a camera up in his office while all his shrink patients came in. I think he must have made love to them all, and he had the camera rolling. And then I come in and I say, as his pregnant wife, "What do you do in here?" Which got quite a big laugh the day that I saw the film. But since, my God, all these people are dead, Python. The guy who directed that, Milton Moses Ginsburg, he recently died. John Avildsen recently died. It's the end of an era, really, where there was a different kind of respect for filmmaking. There was no AI. There were
No.
and both of these films obviously had no special effects. People were presumably just like people, filmed by
Mm-hmm.
people, acting like people, which I think is kind of refreshing and a good thing to have.
I know one film you did where the filmmakers are still alive because I interviewed a couple of brothers that you. I interviewed Tom and Bob Simone who did Chatterbox.
Wow.
I had them on separate because Tom had done Hell Night and Bob DeSimone did Friday the 13th Part 5 A New Beginning. But I had them come on to get together to talk about Chatterbox, and we got to have a good laugh about that whole thing because even they're kind of shaking their heads at it now. They're a couple of really good guys, and I was happy to have the two of them on together, and watch that collaboration. But you're listed as in Chatterbox as well. Now, I've seen clips of Chatterbox watching the Cinema Snob. It's not a film I have seen, but I know the gist of it. Do you want to talk any about that film?
I'm not even remembering. I'm remembering Arachnophobia. I'm so tired of saying everybody's dead, but of course Steven Spielberg, Frank Marshall are still
Hmm.
doing films, directing and producing. I mean,
Well,
they don't stop.
Arachnophobia, I saw that in 1990 in the theaters.
Wow.
And then it's rest in peace, Julian Sands.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember him in this, and it's sad that he
Another dead person, another
he's
genius
gone.
hits the dust, right? I mean,
Yeah. But I remember John Goodman was so funny as the spider exterminator in this movie.
he is such a brilliant actor. It
Hmm.
really doesn't matter what he does, if it's outrageous comedy or serious stuff, he can do all of it. And I think the trick about him being so brilliant in whatever side of the spectrum he's doing is that he's always grounded. And that's hard.
Hmm.
It's always hard for me. That's hard for me as a person. I'm going to write poetry. Well, I have 5 books out there, so it's not that hard for me. But to be
Hmm.
grounded as an actor is a blessing, because then you're in your body where a lot of the inspiration comes from. So I'm a big fan of John's, big fan.
Oh yeah, he's terrific. And of course, you play Edna Beechwood in Arachnophobia. I remember when I saw this in the theater, and you got these scenes where Jeff Daniels is trapped in this basement and the spiders are just creeping up. And I remember I was getting nervous, because these spiders were able to kill people. And And Jeff was a good casting for this because he was able to play the everyman until he did Dumb and Dumber. Then he, but he was great in this, and of course, Harley Jane Kozak as his wife. I mean, you had a good cast in this movie. What was your experience like on Arachnophobia?
Well, what I mainly remember, Python or
Hmm.
Greg, I
Hmm.
love that you have these names that are like diametrically interesting.
Uh-huh.
Okay. I remember being on this on location for 2 weeks.
Hmm.
And what I mainly remember are the shelves and shelves of real live spiders that they had for the shoot. It was scary to see so many spiders in such a small space.
I
And that,
bet.
and that's what I mainly remember. Actually, I remember they in a scene that they cut of mine being in a shower with a spider going up the wall and screaming like a banshee.
Hmm. Does it affect you showering now, or are you over it?
No, I've seen Psycho too. Although I did have a nightmare this morning of some guy being in a shower. That was weird. Never mind. One is deep, one has frivolous concerns, and then hopefully I'll get a good analysis of the dream by the end of the week.
There
Who
you
wants to
go.
focus on nightmares? All right, let's talk comedy. I realize that the books that you said you wanted to talk about that I've written are all have so much comedy in them. And even,
Yes,
yeah.
I love comedy.
So even looking back at Rocky, I think people remember my scene, which is, as you know, very short. What did I have? 6 lines, probably not even. And a line, by the way, that I improvised. Yo, Rockhead wasn't in the script that I received, but Stallone left it in. That there's part of me that really that understands humor. I don't do the Alan Arkin thing, which is to be watching myself and making sure it's funny and having a distance from the character so that the humor is not lost on the audience. That's a special genius. But when I look at that particular scene, there is a humor in it, the way I played it. So, yeah, how many books of mine are funny? Well, acting techniques for everyday life is more a self-help book so that people can learn acting techniques. But let's talk about laughter. So if somebody has to go and be in life, because these are all actors' techniques for everyday life, let's say they have to be funny. So they need to be, I don't mean to use Robin Williams' name in vain, but I mean, he was so brilliant. But to
Hmm.
have that kind of genius, how do you get that? I mean, there are techniques to do that. Actually, Talia Shire sent me to an acting teacher. Oh my God, this is 50 years ago, Donna Gerard.
Hmm.
She had us talk to our characters. So by the same token, somebody could talk to Robin Williams or whoever the genius comedian is to ask for advice. So maybe it's posture, maybe it's voice, maybe it's you wear a certain handkerchief, maybe you put an affirmation in your shoe. Okay, let's go humor for the next book. Obviously, Poems of the Laughing Buddha. It's really, I bought this statue when I made the transition from actress to writer, which I had always been a writer, but I had been a playwright so I could be a star. Now it was time for me to be myself, as we started with that. So I bought this statue and just to cheer me up. And lo and behold, I thought, well, if I'm going to be a writer now, I should be writing. So I wrote all these poems to this character who keeps laughing. Greg, the statue never stops laughing. And he was my teacher. And I just wrote them as an exercise for me, saying, well, if I'm going to be an actor, a writer, I should be writing. All right, I'll write a poem a day. And then a catalog that was selling my acting techniques self-help book said she would put it in the catalog because the other book was selling so well. And I went, wow, she thinks it's good enough. And those were the best poems I had ever written because I did not care what an audience thought. They were for me. They're honest, they're funny, they're inspiring. I have people who still call me to say, you know, I woke up really depressed and I picked up that book and now I'm not depressed, which I find extraordinary. It's just words on a piece of paper. So there's that book. Dogs in Topanga. I mean, you and I are talking about animals here, right? Dogs make us laugh. Cats make us laugh. They make us happy.
Kitty makes me laugh. Yep.
What's the cat's name?
Skittles.
What is it?
Skittles.
How do you spell that?
Skittles.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah, he's a rescue.
Well, mine's a rescue.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to read a short poem from Dogs in Topanga, okay?
Sure, go for it.
Okay, it's called Dogs.
Okay.
Happy. They are naturally happy. They naturally wag their tails and are happy. And can't we learn anything from dogs? Are we that stupid? We can put men into space, fly airplanes through one of the largest buildings in the world, and we can't learn to wag our tails like a dog? That's it. I haven't read that in a long time.
You get a point to it. It's a point, yes.
I mean, that's everybody's challenge, I think, or goal, and somehow how to make themselves happy. I mean, we know the world is full of terrible things that you and I don't have to talk about for this last half hour.
Mhm.
However, everyone longs to be happy, and too many people don't know how to do it, which is, I think, why we have war. If people were really happy, they'd rather be happy than killing.
I think so.
Everybody.
Yeah. So what's it like going from writing like straightforward story to writing poetry? Do you prefer one or over the other? Because I know you're a playwright as well, right?
Right.
So which do you prefer? Is there one that's a bigger challenge? Do you gain more satisfactory over one over the other, or is both the same?
The truth is, I mean, but what's your favorite, movie, book, blah, blah. It's whatever I'm working on at the moment. So that, frankly, I just got a call from somebody who, somewhere on the internet, he realized I had written a play about the friendship between Martin Luther King and Rabbi Abraham Heschel. They were very good friends. They respected each other enormously. When you see photos of them marching at Selma, for example, they look like one person. They are so linked, arm in arm. And and so I wrote this play. You know Ed Asner, right? You know who he was?
Yep. I knew who he was. Yep.
He played my Rabbi Heschel.
Uh-huh.
And we got 97 laughs in 105 minutes, and people were crying when they left the theater.
Okay.
I bring this up because I just got an email last week from someone I did not know saying, has anybody optioned your play for a movie?
Okay.
And so, frankly, Greg, that may be my next challenge. How is a movie different from a play, from a book of poems, from another book, from a short story? And the truth, I believe, is, and it's kind of the way it is acting, every particular work has its own rules. Like even for this interview, I have to speak differently. I address where your energy is, what your curiosity is, what your intelligence is hungry for. Because I ran into someone who also has a podcast, and she says, have you done many? And I hadn't really thought about it, but of course, each would be so different.
Yeah.
So by the same token, you said, which do I like best? Not only the one I'm doing at the moment, but did you say what's different about them? I think
Well, yeah.
the biggest challenge is, how does a movie or a play about these two icons, these two geniuses, who, despite the prejudices of the world, one being Black, one being white, one being Jewish, nevertheless found for each other huge respect and love. Now that's a story to dig your teeth into
Absolutely.
in a different way from, for example, one of my plays was about a dancer who danced the can-can in Paris in 1900 because I wanted to dance. So I wrote a play so I could dance, and that was the play.
Mm-hmm.
Totally different energy, totally different poignancy, but probably, if I'm honest, I'd like to think this is true. I haven't gone through all my works to know, but I think probably everything I write is a love story.
Okay.
Certainly, the Jane Avril, she is the dancer that the famous painter Toulouse-Lautrec painted. There are all those can-can posters with her dancing that he did, and paintings of her that he did in the Louvre, anywhere you could look. And it's their love story. Actually, it's a triangle finally. But certainly it's a love story between Heschel and King. When I first was introduced to them, I saw two quotes side by side, and I was challenged. And someone said, Rabbi, Heschel wrote one of these and Martin Luther King wrote the other. Who do you think wrote which? I guessed wrong. You couldn't tell the difference. Anyway, so here's to love stories. So I guess, and every love story is different. So yeah, I guess, I mean, God willing, I will love whatever love story I'm writing in whatever medium, and I'll be flexible enough to be able to change. I mean, in the same way, for example, all these books of poetry, I mean, the actress in me, to be honest, is not dead. So people always want to record me doing them. For example, there I am on Instagram reading, I don't know, probably a dozen poems from the COVID-19 book. And I got it into my head. Obviously, I was homebound because nobody could leave their house. But I got it into my head to wear a different costume for each poem. Now, that is not usual poetry recitation performance behavior. But depending on the work, one adjusts one's body, one's voice, one's costume. So that begins to answer your very interesting question, right?
Yep. So you mentioned you like comedy. Do you have any favorite comedians?
Whoever's making me laugh in the next hour.
Well, for me, it's always Emma Stone. Plus,
Really?
she's beautiful. She's beautiful, but she makes me laugh.
That's good. In what particularly?
Just her energy, her mannerisms. She's not even a comedian. It's just she just makes me laugh
Well, as
in
we
all
know,
kinds of movies that she's done.
well, God bless her. Because
Mm-hmm.
I did a lot of research when the poems of the Laughing Buddha came out.
Uh-huh.
I was suddenly asked to do lectures on laughter. And I realized that, in fact, the body produces a kind of magical automatic chemical when we laugh, which actually strengthens our immune systems.
Oh, nice.
I mean, even smiling will do it.
I laugh at my cat, but he's too busy laying there on his side and sleeping right now.
Oh, I'll bet he's laughing, and so you can't tell.
Oh, I laugh at Kitty a lot.
That's good for your health. No wonder you seem so jolly, Greg. Really, it's a blessing. It's
Well,
a blessing.
it's been a rough year, but I'm still around. I'm still kicking. I'm still surviving like Rocky, I'm still up for the next bout.
Well, I'm sorry it's been a rough year, but I'm glad to know you're on your feet.
Hmm.
It's my next book that is finished, but we're trying to get Amazon to put it in book form. That's where I am
Hmm.
on, is about an autoimmune disease that I contracted after COVID, or kind of during COVID, called myasthenia gravis. I don't know if you've
Okay.
ever heard of it, but
No, I haven't.
well, it's an autoimmune disease. And I just got a review from, okay, so the book title is and will be Myasthenia Gravis, the musical. Okay. And I just got a review, the first sentence of which is, myasthenia gravis attacked Jane Marla Robbins, and this book is her brilliant counterattack. And that's really what you're talking about. I mean, stuff gets us down. What are you going to do? You're going to lie down, or like Rock, are you going to get up and fight and
Hmm.
fight to the death? And that's what he's willing to do there. And that's, I mean, what does it mean to fight for your life? I'm not sure always life has to be that hard, but sometimes you got to put on the boxing gloves and
Yep.
say, okay, I believe in this. Someone knocked me down. Whether it's a disease, a person, an event, and I'm going to get back up on my feet and fight to the best of my ability. So
There you go.
what
There you
I've done,
go.
and that's what it sounds like you've done when you say this
Well,
tough year.
I lost a job earlier this year, one that paid well because I was gaslit by somebody else in the company, and
Ah,
I'm right now going regional with it right now, but luckily I had a side job that
hmm.
I was doing part time, and they've taken me on full time, and they're they've been really good with me. So plus I'm going to Toronto for a week this fall to do a convention, and I get to do my interviews and talk to awesome people like yourself, and plus I got Skittles here.
Sounds like a life to me.
There you
Very
go.
impressive. Very impressive.
Yep. I still try to go to the movies once a week. I visit my brother usually on the weekend, and yeah, I try to do stuff to keep myself uplifted as opposed to stay down. Of course, the job thing was pretty harsh, but I do know this at that job. I had For the 13 months I was there, I had perfect attendance.
Wow.
I worked holidays. I did double shifts, including an 18-hour shifts.
Wow.
Yeah, so I've got a lot. I mean, I got basically fired for blowing up at somebody, but yet they've got people working there who've been high at work, drunk at work, and stolen at work. I'm
People
like,
are
yeah,
very scared of people are scared of anger. We are
yeah,
not
but
taught in the schools. So people know people are drunk, people do drugs, but people who get angry scare people.
well,
Really
I'm
sorry.
doing the regional right now because I was a good worker and I was gaslit. And when people start meddling in your life or in your personal life or in your job, as opposed to it being between you and management, then it's a little bit different, But
Terrible.
yep.
But you
So,
say you see your brother every week if you can? That is so awesome.
oh yeah, he and his wife, they don't live too far, but they work during the week. I usually try to go over there on the weekend because most of my conversations are either on my interviews with my cat or on the phone with my supervisor.
Well, it's
So,
the people who we love. It's interesting in the book of poems of COVID-19,
hmm.
everybody seems most moved by the book includes poems about two people I loved, which is what we're talking about again,
Mhm.
and who died of COVID, because that seemed like it was appropriate for a book about COVID-19. And maybe I'll read one of those poems to you. One is an actor who you can look up named Alan Garfield, or Alan Gore.
Okay. Yep.
I mean, he worked for all the big directors for a long
Hmm.
time. That's if I can find the book. Where did I put the book? Oh, here it is.
Hmm.
Okay, because I mean, that sounds appropriate since we are talking about actors.
Hmm.
Okay, so here's the book on Alan Garfield.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Go for it.
First born 1939, died in 2020. It was the virus that got him in the end, that crazy cowboy. The stroke didn't, paralysis didn't, not even being unable to say anything but the one syllable "ja." This rowdy, brilliant, naughty boy, verbal acrobat, neurotic, grounded actor who worked with the best of them. Coppola, Avildsen, Foreman. He taught, he directed, he could talk anybody under the table, and then he could only utter "ja." He said what got him through his cancer was knowing I was there, not that we spoke then. We'd really only heard each other at workshops where we had bared our souls. Hard not to love a bared soul. We had a sweet first date, lay on LA grass, smiling, green underneath us, then went back to his place where he excused himself to the bathroom and then emerged naked, 100% naked. Nothing half-cocked about our Alan. All out there. I did say it was too much too soon. He did not disagree. It was Alan, though, all in. We never had another date. Even when he was in a wheelchair, the nurses told me, he flew out of the actor's home to find sushi across the freeway in a wheelchair. Didn't do things halfway, as I said. Nurses couldn't catch him. Nobody could. He could barely keep up with himself.
Hmm.
But the virus got him, and he's gone. Still, I imagine he talks to me. Janie, we weren't meant to be together, not like that, but we'll always be together. I will always love you, and you keep writing. Finish this book. You owe it to yourself and to me and to everyone who's ever been moved or inspired by your poems. Do not be shy. Do not hide. You write. You put it out there. Do it for me. Do as I did. Put yourself out there 100% while you're still alive, because after that, you can't.
That's right. Wow, I like that.
Well, it does. It interests. I mean, I wasn't sure what or if anything I was going to read, but it's the same message we started this interview with.
Hmm.
It's somehow that voice that says, "Don't give up. Put on the boxing gloves.
Yeah,
Get into the ring and do your best."
absolutely.
So, though I think nobody wants to, the idea of COVID, everyone really wants to forget it. But those two poems in there of the people who died, they will reemerge because they're love poems. And I think that's the motor that keeps us going in a funny way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you have any charities that you're involved with that you want to plug and promote on here?
No, I mean, it's funny you should say that.
Hmm.
Not off the top of my head. There's a long list, but the bottom line is I'm hoping that people will buy my books because they will help them feel better, get happy, start laughing. The new ones certainly to heal, because people with the autoimmune diseases who
Hmm.
are reading the new book, they say they feel comforted. buy the book, because I tend to be honest and reveal feelings that these people who are fighting illnesses themselves somehow don't have the tools to uncover in themselves. So they read the book and they feel they're not alone. And that gives them the encouragement you were talking about, Rocky, about that poem with Alan in my mind, telling me to keep fighting. I guess that's what I want my books to do. And that's what I'm hearing from people. It astounds me. I mean, I write really as a writer, because if I didn't, I'd probably die. But the fact that of whoever I am and whatever I end up writing, which I never know, the fact that it would help people to get through the day, to make them feel better, even heal. I mean, the truth is, I used to do a lot of that when I was giving workshops on acting techniques for everyday life. But I guess, if and I'm sure your interviews, podcasts. By the way, is there a difference between the word podcast and interview, or is it the same thing?
Yeah. Look who joined me.
I couldn't. I'm putting on my glasses because, of course, I am. Oh, what a beautiful animal, Greg.
That's Skittles. Hi, Skittles.
That is one cute, gorgeous animal.
Hear that, kitty? You cute, gorgeous kitty. Kitty saying, "Oh boy, you're using me for hits. You're exploiting me." You my buddy. He's all embarrassed now.
It's good for them.
Now he's rubbing against my finger, all forgotten.
Now I'm jealous because my dog is at the groomer. Time for him to get washed and his hair cut so he can sleep on my bed. But he's usually here. He's usually here when I do podcasts. And he's like, "Oh, this is interesting. I'll be up for this. No, I'm going to sleep through that part." He makes me laugh too.
You ever get to do the conventions, like the autograph conventions?
It's not on. I'm too busy as it is, to be honest. No, I haven't done that.
I was going to ask.
I get emails from people and mail saying, "Here's the picture of you and Rocky. Would you sign it and autograph it and send it back to me?" Sure, of course.
There you go. There you go. Well, you want to plug your webpage on here?
Very simple. It's my name, Jane Marla Robbins, and that middle name is Marla. So it's Jane Marla Robbins. Hard to believe my mother named me Jane Marla Robbins because she thought it was a good name for an actress. That early programming is really hard to undo.
There you go.
So it's janemarlarobbins.com. And all the books are on Amazon. So if anybody goes to Amazon, they'll see the 5 or 6 books there. Or Barnes and Noble. I mean, or any bookstore, There they are. There I am. I'm not hiding. Thank you, Alan Garfield Gorowitz. I'm not hiding. I'm out there.
Yep. Well, before we let you go, would you like to read one more poem?
Gee, if you don't mind my being sentimental, wait a minute. No, I'm going to read the other poem of the person who died in COVID. Okay.
Okay, sure.
She was a friend for many, many years. And it's Patricia Bosworth. And I'm going to read the poem, and then you'll probably have read maybe one of her books, whether on Marilyn Monroe or Jane Fonda or Brando, but more of this in her. I love that you give me the space to honor someone I loved. Thank you.
Yes.
So Patricia Bosworth, 1933 through 2020. Patty, how could it have got you? You so smart, but maybe not smart enough. Who did you hug? What book did you pick up? What gossip with a virus entered into your ear? You so brilliant. 13 books of journalistic craft and healing heart. How dare you let it get you, this virus invisible to the naked eye, and you so visible, moderator at the Actors Studio, Audrey Hepburn's best friend in a movie, on talk shows for your books, on Brando, Fonda, Monroe, and on the suicides of your brother and your father. 52 years you were my friend, meeting out tough love, sharing your own self-doubt, still there at 83. You always saying you believed in me, which always shocked me, and me intimidated by your fame, jealous even, but grateful in the end because you saw me, loved me, were my friend.
That is beautiful. It's funny you mentioned Audrey Hepburn. I've had her eldest son on this podcast back in 2017.
Well, that movie, I think, was the love story, and Patty played Audrey's best friend.
Mm-hmm.
They were all nuns together.
Oh yeah, I do tribute interviews when people have passed away, Like I've had Alfred Hitchcock's granddaughter on here, people like that, and it's a lot of fun to do, and it allows me to make them part of the show and honor their legacy. So just like you just did there. But you have a beautiful way of words and expressing yourself with your poetry. I think it's phenomenal. So absolutely, absolutely. I got to do a special shout out to Tommy Kovac from Splat from the Past, who had strongly recommended you to me and put you on my radar. And I was like, okay, absolutely, absolutely. Um, he usually has a lot more time to do interviews than me, and but I enjoy it when I get the opportunity to do this. So this has been a real awesome blessing.
Well, for me too. I haven't looked at those poems in probably 3 years, and it is good to honor the dead, as you say, or rather to honor the lives they've lived and the joy and the love that they gave us.
Mm-hmm.
So I have enjoyed this so much, Greg Python.
Yeah.
Really, to be able to share the bizarre arc of my life so far. And hopefully I will hear about yours and you will hear about mine in the future. It's not the end of the arc.
Not yet. Nope.
Not yet, no.
Nope. Before I let you go, would you mind doing a plug for my show?
Sure.
Just
How do I do that?
Just state your name and say you're listening to Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise.
Okay, my name? Hey, it's Jane Marla Robbins, and I am on this amazing podcast with Greg. I've got all the names wrong. We have to start again. I have to write down my script, A Perfect Actress. All right. What am I saying? I'm going to say my name, and then I'm going to say what, Greg?
You're listening to Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise.
Listening to Greg, last name?
Gilbert.
Gilbert. See, that's what I forgot.
Mm-hmm.
On Python's Paradise. That's such a brilliant name for a show.
Yeah.
I mean, both words, which would be oxymoronic, but aren't. Okay, now.
Mm-hmm.
It's Jane Marla Robbins, and you have been lucky enough to be listening to Greg Gilbert and me on Python's Paradise.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, check out Jane Marla Robbins on her website. Please plug your website one more time.
Jane Marla, Marla, Robbins, or OBBINS.com.
Absolutely.
Where books are sold.
Absolutely. Jane, thank you so much for coming on here today. This has been so much more than I could have ever hoped for. This was beautiful today.
I couldn't agree more.
You're a wonderful poet. Keep doing it. I love how you express yourself with your views of how you see these people. And I've never heard. I'm not just saying this. I never heard poetry like that before. I like that.
Good. Well, it's a challenge, and people don't understand that poetry is accessible, or at least mine is, because
Mm-hmm.
what I really care about is reaching people, communicating.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what you do. So that's what we do. So I feel very blessed to have run into you today. Thank you so much. It was
Absolutely.
meaningful to me, meaningful to me.
Absolutely. You have yourself a wonderful evening. God bless.
Amen to that. And God bless. Bye,
Thank
Greg.
you.
Bye. I'm waving. Bye.
Bye bye.